Hello and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, joined alongside Triple Double himself, Connor Morrissette, and Chris Trevino. We're here in studio going to recap everything that's been going on with USC spring football. Past 5 weeks, the Trojans were in spring football practices. We could watch Tuesdays and Thursdays. We didn't get to see what was going on Saturdays. And of course, this past weekend, the NFL draft happened. 3 Trojans were selected. For the 24th consecutive year, a Trojan went in the first 3 rounds. So we're talking about all that and everything else, but I want to welcome in Connor and Chris. How you guys doing, man?
Doing well. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm also doing well, and I noted that I have not been live in this studio since last year for the signing day special, and I haven't been on Tunnel Vision in what feels like 7 years, so I'm happy to be back. I don't know. I'm excited. We're going to talk. I just want to say the new intro looks very nice. I shot all of that, by the way.
We don't have a new intro yet.
Was that not the new intro?
That was not the new intro. We're waiting on the new intro, but because there's still some Miller Moss shots in the new intro, but it's good. It's the old intro, yeah.
They look great.
But Chris has done some amazing job. He did an amazing job shooting some field level highlights. So we're going to get a new intro for the off season heading into 2025, which of course Jed Mayava is going to be leading the show, going into all that.
That's how long I've been gone. I didn't notice. I didn't register.
It's been a little while. Connor and I have been doing it, and shout out to Chris, not Chris Trevino. Chris has been gracious with his time. He's doing our intros, just does it for free.
Editor Chris.
For
the love of the game.
He just had a baby.
Oh, so congratulations.
Yes. So he's going to be delayed a little bit. I tried to get him to get a new intro for this show. Wasn't going to happen, but that's okay. But we should have it pretty soon coming up. But we're going to recap everything that's happened with USC spring football. And, of course, we're going to look ahead to what's going on for the 2025 season and look at some of the USC players that were drafted in the NFL draft. If you're watching us live on YouTube or Facebook, we'd love to get your comments and questions, put them up on the show. We do appreciate that. So I think we have a lot of YouTube people chiming in right now. If you're on Facebook, chime in. Let us know. Just go in the chat and put your question in there. But Chris, it's been a while since we've had you here.
Yeah.
Everyone's asking. So if you listen to our show, Connor and I do the Peristyle podcast. We do our regular show every week. Thanks to Trader Joe's for sponsoring that. Chris and Gerard Martinez, my longtime partner, do the Composite 2-Star Recruits podcast. They want that to be live also. Are you going to do any of those live shows? What's going on?
Is that actually what they want?
They do.
Okay. Well, I would be open to doing that, but you need to push Gerard, my podcasting partner in crime. You need to push him along. We got to get him in the studio. We do it from his office now. He's not in the garage anymore, so he's no
in his
longer
office.
Garage Martinez. So we just got to get the next step, which is like getting on camera, doing it remote consistently, maybe at least once a month. I think that should be the goal.
That's
one
a great
live
goal.
show a month.
I think that's great because you guys do get the
Donations.
The donations. You do pretty good with that.
Well, like YouTube gets the donations. They
Yeah.
get 30% cut.
Steve says, been a follower for 20 years. Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate that. Mark says, hey to Ryan, Chris, and Triple Double.
Hey, Mark.
We love that. Mark's always in there. And Brian says, love the highlights. Chris does a great job with that.
Yeah.
Even from practice, doing a great job. The videos, if you're on our YouTube page at Inside Troy, a lot of great stuff going up there. And shout out to Riley, our intern. Let's put her on the screen because we tried to show her before. Riley, you want to jump in? Riley Sager. Yes, she's here in studio with us, checking things out. Hopefully she'll be sitting in a seat like going forward and we can have her be a part of that. But if you saw the instant analysis videos with her and Connor, done a great job. A lot of progress, Connor. I think she's done a nice job.
Yeah, from the first one rally, 5 minutes, to I think the last 2 have been like 16 to 20. So, yeah, doing an awesome job and really excited to have a new intern. It's great. Miss Jack, of course, but Riley's filling his shoes very well.
So you said like Jack's terrible compared to Riley? Is that what you're saying? Or, no, we love Jack.
We wish Jack well doing baseball in the DMV. Is it Virginia, Maryland?
No, I just Frederick.
Virginia?
Fredericksburg.
Okay.
Fredericksburg?
Yeah, it's right on the.
He's calling baseball now, so if you're wondering where he is, that's what he's doing.
Bless and Break says Trevino always complains about being tired during the live shows. LOL.
Your response?
Are you tired?
Well, to be fair, they are 6 hours long.
Well, your shows with Gerard are 6 hours long.
He said live show, so
Yeah.
if we're talking our live show, it's usually on signing day, long day.
Those are long
time.
days. Yeah. Well, good stuff. Well, thank you everyone for being here in the chat with us. I know we tried to start the show and there was a little technical hiccup there. We are going to get Bishop Fitzgerald on a live show on Monday. So, well, actually, we're not going to do it live, but we'll have a show on our YouTube channel on Monday. He's the safety transfer in from North Carolina State. We were supposed to try have him on late last week. Scheduling didn't happen, so we will get him on Monday. So make sure you check that out. And we'll have our regular shows and everything going on throughout the week. Shotgun Spratling will be here next weekend. So I think we're going to do another Tunnel Vision show on Sunday night because Shotgun, when he's in town, he likes to do the Tunnel Vision. So it should be good. Good stuff there. But Connor and I will interview Bishop Fitzgerald on Monday. So make sure you guys check that out on there. Chris, what do you got coming up?
I got nothing.
You don't
We
have
got commitments coming up every week, it feels like. So check us out on Composite 2-Star. That's what we'll be doing.
Yeah, you guys are kicking butt there. We got a lot of reviews. I have to look at the.
Well, I beg for those reviews, so let it be known.
No, it's the flagship show. I know the Peristyle podcast is the flagship show, but you guys are becoming that.
We have
Too kind.
we have a 5-star review. You want me to read it?
Yeah, sure.
2-star composite. This one's from Trojan and Sodak. I don't know where Sodak is, but that's where.
South Dakota, maybe?
Maybe. Best USC podcast. Love the info and insight. Need to stop with the Eddie voicemails, though. Very annoying. Use that time for USC questions. It is funny when people like, we used to get a lot of, Curtis and Moreno Valley emails or voicemails. Not as many anymore, but Eddie does send you guys a lot of voicemails.
He is the mascot of the podcast.
Yeah.
So, yes, I will indulge him.
You will does them. Okay, that's fine. He did one voicemail last week.
You're like 9.
He does several. Okay, so let's talk about USC spring football practice. A little bit different this year. Yesterday, Saturday, was the final spring football practice. There was no spring game. They had a Trojan Olympics. There were players' parents involved. There were a lot of prospects, recruits involved. Of course, the players, coaches, and all that. But media was not allowed in. Even the Big Ten Network, who was at practice on Thursday, they were not allowed to cover this one. I was holding out hope that maybe USC would allow the media to go. Did not. But overall, the last week or two of USC spring practice, I want to get your guys' thoughts on how it went and anything you might have heard from yesterday's final scrimmage of USC spring football.
I think, Chris, you should start. You were there on campus, didn't see the practice, but you posted something on our board. Give the people an update from yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, I was there on campus. I was recruit hunting because obviously this was a massive recruiting event. We have updates on the board. I put a gallery up. I was standing there in the rain with my umbrella, taking photos of guys. Coming out of Heritage Hall, there was a lot of big names on campus. 5-star Kini Pepe back again. Kind of was not on the initial list, but he was back again. So that's massive for USC, which continues to trend in the right direction for the 5-star tackle out of IMG Academy from Long Beach and the cousin of Kobe Pepe, senior defensive tackle. But yes, I did post an update on the board, just some nuggets of information that I got from sources that were in attendance at the Coliseum, because obviously we were not allowed there. Parents were there from families and such, and a couple other people. But yeah, I posted some stuff. I don't want to get too detailed because that's board stuff. You know, it's VIP. Sign up. But I will say I was told the defense definitely won Saturday's scrimmage portions. Like, they were the dominating force in the Coliseum. Multiple turnovers were forced by this defense, and it kind of reinforces my idea. I don't feel like we learned a ton from spring camp because we obviously couldn't see much. But from what we've heard, I feel like USC's defense is going to be the what is the word I'm looking for? The
Best unit?
not the unit. It's going to be the thing that drives this team
Straw
forward.
that stirs the drink?
Sure, yeah, I like that one. That was a little different, but yeah, I like that. I think the defense is going to be the calling card for this USC team in 2025.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think, too, we should mention Mekhi Lemon's hurt, so he didn't really play. And then it sounded like Jacoby Lane didn't play a ton
Yeah,
either.
didn't get a ton of reps. I think they wanted to see some of the younger guys.
So those are the two best players on offense. Maybe you throw Elijah Page in there, too. But the two best returning players for sure. So that, of course, would hurt any offense in that situation. But, yeah, that goes along with what we've heard. I heard from someone who watched a practice a couple weeks ago that there was a day when the offense looked good and the defense was committing some penalties. So I do think it goes back and forth. And now's the off season when everyone's just itching for any information at all. So I would just say, like, take everything with a grain of salt right now because obviously we didn't see it. And B, like, there's a lot of different stuff happening with injuries, and I'm sure they're trying guys out at different spots. It's time to tinker and stuff. So it would make sense that the defense is doing really well. And it seems like that defensive line is causing some problems, which is very encouraging.
Yeah, it's if you guys don't know, from what we could see, it's not the same as it's been before. As far as we only get to see about 20 minutes of the first portions of practice, so we can see a little bit of stuff and we can put up some videos and photos. But as far as like who's beating who and one-on-ones, we get a lot of questions like that. Like we really can't watch that kind of stuff, which is just it's kind of unfortunate. Usually the spring game would be the one time you would see as many competitive periods as possible, and we just didn't get to do that this year. But you talk to people, we hear some things. I heard the similar stuff to what you guys were hearing about the defense being ahead. There were some interceptions, and that scrimmage, closing out spring football. You never know really what what were they were trying to do as far as the offensive plays they were calling, what they were calling on the defensive side. But I think what we saw last year was certainly strides forward for defensive scheme. Maybe they didn't have the personnel to kind of fill some of those gaps in. I don't think they're very deep at linebacker. They've lost some depth in the cornerback spot. But outside of that, you feel like they're better on that side of the ball. The defensive line looks completely different. You don't have like a Nate Clifton at 275 pounds, like trying to play inside like he did last year, like putting on some weight and trying to do that. They got bigger bodies. It looks like the scheme that Danton Lynn was putting together that we saw improvements just on the numbers for. Now you have some bodies to kind of go along with it. So maybe the biggest takeaway for me for spring football is just like, okay, I think the defense schematically is going to be, a little bit better maybe they were last year, but personnel-wise, it's going to be significantly better.
That's what I think, too. I just wonder if they have a premier pass rusher. That's really the only complaint that I have with the defense. I like the cornerback room. I really like what they are doing at safety with Kamari Ramsey coming back. Linebacker, if everyone stays healthy, which is a big if with Eric Gentry, of course, but that unit I like. Desmond Stevens, a little bit of a question mark, but everyone seems to think that he's going to take a big step forward. The defensive line in the middle, I love a lot of those guys, but then just you look at the edge guys, a lot of potential, and if someone can pop and have like a 10-sack season, even fewer than that, if a couple guys can get to the quarterback consistently, that obviously changes a lot of things. So that's, to me, what I'm going to be watching the most early on in the season is a good edge rusher like establishing himself. That's going to be a big difference maker for them.
And it should be noted, the guy you just threw on screen, Keyshawn Silver, basically out the entire spring camp.
Yeah.
Coming back from an injury, rehabbing. Lincoln Riley said, he was pretty much going to be out all of spring. Try to get him in at the end, but seems like they were, don't need to rush him back. He's a veteran. I know he's learning the defense, but our projected starter at nose tackle, so we didn't get to see a lot of him outside of, a couple individual drills, but size-wise, he brings it. Jamal Jarrett, so you got Jamal Jarrett in there. You got Kobe Pepe kind of holding down that nose tackle interior spot while Silver was just, getting healthy. You'd rather him be healthy for the fall than healthy for the spring. So this is a time where you can rest guys as they did. Christian Pierce was shut down for the rest of spring camp. Lake McCree was shut down for the rest of spring camp. Looks like Mekhi Lemon was shut down there at the end, coming back from that hamstring injury. No need to rush these guys back. It's going to be a long season. But just note, Keyshawn Silver not there, so I'm excited to see how that unit even looks, how that looks different in the fall and the summer when you get number 9 back.
And with the defensive line, too, a lot of guys who we think, oh, like Devin Tompkins, he'll just play in the middle. He's going to be switching around to the edge. Jakeem Stewart, too, Jade Abasiri, like guys who last year had to play one position due to just how the roster was built. They're now going to move around a lot. That's something else that I've taken away from spring. When we can watch the defensive lineman drills, sometimes Jade and Devin and Jakeem Stewart are with the edge rushers, and then other times they're not. And that was a huge part of Anthony Lynn's defense at UCLA, tinkering and moving those guys all around. And now that it seems to me like USC has the personnel to do that too, which is very encouraging.
Anything were you guys watching out there? It just seemed to me, if you look at any position group, the defensive line group looked completely different than it was last year. Just the number of bodies, the athleticism, it just seemed like, okay, this is a whole different kind of feel from what we've seen before. Is there another position group, or do you agree with that? Or is there another position group that you're like, wow, this group looks a lot better than what we saw in 2024?
I mean, just defensive line wise, I remember looking at last spring, like, they really need to hit the portal. They really need to hit the portal. This year, they didn't need to do anything. They didn't need to do anything with the portal defensive line-wise. They were just so deep, and you didn't even notice when a guy like Keyshawn Silver wasn't practicing doing individual drills. You didn't notice that Anthony Lucas was gone all of spring camp. Like, they have dudes, Braylon Shelby, Cameron Fountain, Jakeem Stewart, Devin Tompkins. You have all these guys, and they're so deep. So that obviously just jumped out the page, just watching the defensive line group every day in practice over there with Coach Henney and Sean Nua, splitting them up, working the sleds. It was like they've come so far from what they were last season, a complete 180 turn. But as far as the other position groups, safety got less depth than 2024. That's why they needed to go in the portal. It was the deepest position group last year in the spring and going to the fall. That is not the case. I think they're in a decent spot now that you got Kennedy Urlacher. Linebacker, still a concern for me, but you got 2 freshmen coming in. You got the Penn State guy coming in, so I think they're going to be okay. I guess you could make the argument that they need more experienced talent. But as far as the top 2, Eric Gentry and Desmond Stevens, like in terms of potential, that combination, athleticism, they're way better than they were in 2024. No offense to Easton Mascaredas and Mason Cobb.
To your first point on the defensive line, and there's still time, but it doesn't look like they're going to add an edge rusher. I thought they were. They didn't end up doing that. I would have liked to have seen them do that, an established guy who has some history of getting to the quarterback, because they don't really have anyone with that history right now, and Cameron Fountain projects to do that as a sophomore. I'm not saying like, oh, he had a bad freshman year or anything like that, but they don't have an established guy, and I would have liked to have seen that. It seems to me like they really didn't want to upset the chemistry in that room or just bring another body in. Like they really feel like with Anthony Lucas, Braylon Shelby, and Cameron Fountain, Elijah Newby, Jakeem Stewart, like those guys are going to have what it takes to get to the quarterback. And if we see kind of what happened last season where USC doesn't get to the quarterback as consistently as people would like, then I think that will be a fair second guess. And then to Ryan, your question, I think the running back room, not that last year's was bad, but I think they have more depth this year, and that room to me just looks really good. So the defensive line, I think to your point, and I agree with it, like that's the room that clearly catches your eye the most and looks the most transformed. But the running back room, I think you have 3 solid options in Wayman Jordan, Eli Sanders, and Brian Jackson, and I don't think you've necessarily had 3 solid options for a couple years now. You probably did in Lincoln Riley's first year, but the last couple, not quite.
Yeah, they look good. I think that's a great room. Maybe you could argue the receiver room as far as having, like, you have 2 alphas with Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, where maybe last year you thought there was like 5 guys that could step up, and there's no more Deuce Robinson. You don't have Branch there anymore, but the 2 top guys are going to be great, and maybe a Prince Strachan is going to come in, and so maybe it's sort of be focused on a couple different guys. You mentioned the running back room, Lake McCree. He ended up missing the latter part of spring, but I think it's a deeper tight end group. We saw the defense get better last year, and they were good enough to compete. They were so bad like the previous couple of years. You feel like the offense needs to get back to Lincoln Riley status, where they were, top 5 every year, except one year I think there were 6, and then last year nowhere near that. Do you feel like that room can get a lot better as far as like the running backs are good, the receivers are good? We'll see about the offensive line. We'll see about the quarterback position. But I think for USC to be successful, they need to kind of get that. We didn't think the offense would take as big of a step back as they did last year. It was significant. But I don't know if you guys agree as far as like where they are with, you feel good with the running backs, you feel about the receivers, but what about the other positions?
Yeah, that's going to make or break the season. I don't know if anyone feels really good about quarterback, really good about offensive line, really good about tight ends right now with some of those injuries. So, I mean, I've been pretty consistent this offseason talking about how I do think Jaden Maiava can improve and take that next step. But, like, until you see it, it's hard to say that with 100% certainty. And Riley and I have talked about it on Instant a lot. The offensive line, like with most teams, it's obviously important. But with this team, I think it's even more so because couple unknowns, new guys, right tackle, what's going on there with Tobias Raymond and Justin Tamanu'u. It doesn't look like a portal addition is going to happen there at right tackle after USC was sniffing around a little bit. If that offensive line is inconsistent, you just see how that can affect offenses, and particularly a quarterback who has turned the ball over consistently in his career. That's going to be a problem. So that kind of will make or break the season, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't feel like I got a lot of, I don't want to say clarity, but like,
no, agreed.
Confidence with the offense. You look around it on paper, it's like, okay, Mekhi Lemon, that guy's a guy. Jacoby Levin, that guy's a Wayman Jordan, Eli Sanders, we think those guys are really good. Like McCree, steady, dependable. You got some potential guys who can emerge in the tight end room. Elijah Page makes the jump. Yeah, Alani Noah, second year. You have a lot of these like things you like about the offense, but together, does it work? Will it work? Will Jaden, cut down on the turnovers? Will he take the next step as a QB1 for this offense? Will it work better because he is more mobile than Miller Moss was last year? And yeah, you may have question marks on the offensive line, right tackle, but will his legs sort of alleviate some of that? Like, could not be helped last year with Miller Moss in the pocket. So you look at it, all these things, like, will it come together? Will these parts come together as its sum and be successful? I don't think they need to be elite. I think the defense will be elite. I think they just need to be good.
Which is crazy because we're talking about a Lincoln Riley coach team. Who would have ever thought that his defense is clearly the better unit and the offense for the second year in a row doesn't have a 5-star quarterback? It's like, are we living in crazy town? But that's the reality with USC. And I think the biggest story of the offseason, Ryan and I have talked about it a lot, is retaining Danton Lynn. That was so huge. They struggled last season, of course, USC, and Lynn had an easy out. If it wasn't working with Riley, if it wasn't working in Los Angeles, he could have easily had gone to his alma mater, Penn State, and just been done with USC. But the fact that USC ponied up the money was significant. But the fact that Lynn wanted to come back and see this through and work with Riley is huge, and that bodes so well for the defense. And then Chris and I and Ryan, we're all in agreement the defense is going to be better than last season. We think it'll be the best unit on the team. The head coach is Lincoln Riley, Mr. Offense, Mr. Quarterback. And we have questions about the quarterback, questions about the offensive line, which has been a consistent theme here. It's just funny when you step back and look at it. We all thought when Riley was hired, USC would recruit at a high level, and they're doing that now in 2026 after a couple down years. But, like, the first thing any of us thought was, like, they're always going to get good quarterback play. They're always going to score a lot of points. And last season that didn't happen. And Maiava was 3-1 as a starter, but I don't think anyone is, like, a sure 100% he's going to be great opinion with him, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I listen to a lot of off-season college football podcasts, and you want to rank guys, and they talk about the best returning starters or the best potential new starters, if you have Arch Manning, like okay, everyone thinks he's going to be great at Texas, and Jaden Maiava never comes up in any of those lists as far as who's going to be the next big thing. And I think for Lincoln Riley, he needs to be the next big thing. He's not getting a lot of buzz. And we had a question in the chat. I think we have to give Maiava more credit. I think some USC fans are high on him. You mentioned Connor. He's 3-1 as a starter. But there's a lot of people that are just I'm not sure. And this is where the quarterback whisperer like a Lincoln Riley has to come in and be This is a guy that we, had brought in as a transfer from UNLV. He needs to step up and be the next guy. He needs to be a potential superstar in college football. Nobody in the national landscape is looking at him as a potential superstar right now. And, certainly when you're coached by Lincoln Riley, you could be. I don't know if USC needs to get him to be that, to go to the next level, but he has to make some strides forward and have that potential to be someone that you're going to talk about in his third year as like a Heisman Trophy kind of candidate. That's what Lincoln Riley's had forever. The whole offseason, I've heard nothing as far as like people are like anticipating Jade Maiava being one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country. And for a Lincoln Riley coach team, that's just kind of a weird place that we just haven't seen.
100% what Max is saying. I do think Jaden deserves more credit than he's being given with the fan base. Connor and I feel like, are two of the more optimistic people when it comes to Jaden. I know maybe he's losing it right now.
No,
but
I am.
I think Jaden has proven that he should be the starter going into this year. But that being said, he also needs to take a significant step forward. A small step forward is not going to get this team to 10 wins. A big step forward will. So got to cut down on turnovers, got to be better at decision making, got to really take command of the offense. We saw the potential. We also saw the floor, and it's not great. Now, if we can raise that floor, we've made this point on our preview. If you raise the floor for Jada Maiava, you're going to win games in 2025. But again, it's on him to make that step. It's on Lincoln Riley, as the QB whisperer that he is, to get him to a point where he can take that next step in his development. And, we're kind of circling that as the big thing that's going to make or break. I think you could get by with the offensive line, but you cannot get by with a quarterback that doesn't take the next step this season.
There's no reason to throw it 50 times, though.
Yes,
which
absolutely.
We saw last year. So a big part of this equation, of course, like with any team, is the play caller and the head coach. So that is something that I'll be watching too, because I think the same thing was true last season. Like the team coming into this year, that I feel like they're better, but they're set up to be like a classic Big Ten team, I think, where the defense is really good. The running game should be the strength of the offense. Maybe you get a flash play here or there from the quarterback. Maiava's certainly capable of that. We love 2 of the receivers on the roster. Like, they're better than an Iowa offense of the last couple of years. I'm not saying that, but like they're set up to be a win on defense, run the ball on offense, kind of team. And so I just hope that the head coach plays like that, like calls the plays like that, because that didn't happen last year, and I do think they would have won more games if the play calling was different. And there were a million issues last year. We don't have to go back into it, but a big part of last season's failings, like I feel like Riley, for whatever reason, throwing it 50 times with Moss repeatedly, it was like, man, that's clearly not the right recipe, and they kept doing it. So didn't make much sense.
That's a great point. Set Jaden up for success.
Yeah.
Set him up for success.
You certainly want to do that. And there were situations where, like in the Washington game, you're like, this is a Husky defense that's very good against the pass, and they're poor against the run. And USC, I think, threw it 30 times in the first half and ran it 8. And you're like, what is going on here? And it was almost like you were trying to prove a point. Like, I know everyone says we should run the ball. We're going to throw it. They started running it more in the second half, but it was a little too late.
And they ran it well in the second half of that game, but everyone remembers how they got stuffed at the end, and then it's, no, they didn't. Yes, they did.
It would have worked
that's
well
how they
if
got back into the freaking game.
Yeah, it would have worked well if you ran it the first half too, but it was sort of like it took the whole first half to like he was trying to prove a point and it just wasn't working, and then you had to go with what everyone was saying. Hey, run the football. You can run the football against this Husky team.
Yeah, and that's what's so fascinating about this season. Like, recruiting is better. The roster is better. You retain the defensive staff. Like, everything is in place. Maybe not a 10-win season. It's possible, but like a 9-3 season is very possible with the schedule, with the roster, with how everything's set up. And now it's kind of like Lincoln Riley, you're out of excuses. And I think that's another fascinating part of the season where it's, we inherited a bad roster. Transfer portal. NIL. Like, it's now or never. And I'm really excited to see what that pressure leads to for this group.
So we're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. And if you're watching us live on either platform, we actually are going to take live callers. If you are around, you want to call 512-4-TUNNEL is the number. 512 I know it's an Austin area code, but that's the one we got. Because you could do 4 tunnel, call in, and we would love to take your calls on the air. Hopefully that works. There's been a lot of questions in the chat. I've starred those, and we'll get to those a little bit later on in the show. Any other spring football news and notes you guys want to bring up before we kind of talk about the NFL draft?
I think the biggest position battle was right tackle, and it seems like Tobias Raymond is in the lead right now over Justin Tawanu, but it's very close. So that is a position battle that will continue. Looking at the cornerbacks, it seems like that's a position battle that will continue, although according to Chris, it sounded like Braylon Conley had a really good game or a really good scrimmage on Saturday, so he's someone to watch for with Marcellus Williams, DeCarlos Nicholson, and DJ Harvey. Outside of that, I kind of feel like the team's pretty established, where you got Jade Mayob at quarterback. The rest of the offensive line is everyone who we've talked about. Receivers, you have the top 2 guys. And then the tight end is probably going to be a lot of Walker Lyons. And if Lake McCree's healthy, you look at him. Defensively, the defensive line will mix and match, but we know the impact guys there. Linebacker, Stevens and Gentry. Safety, Kamari Ramsey, Christian Pierce, and Bishop Fitzgerald. And the cornerbacks, the guys I mentioned. So really right tackle and like a few other positions are still up in the air, but there really isn't much that hasn't been, like, of course stuff still isn't totally decided, but we have a pretty good idea of the rest of the roster is what I'm trying to say.
With cornerback, I'm just really interested to see if they're going to make any sort of move there with the transfer portal. Obviously, They have 3 guys coming in right now, and Urlacher, Robinson, and then Zacharias Williams, the wide receiver, to kind of fill out that room, get them some more depth, and a guy who can contribute, a young guy who can contribute this season. But cornerback is one of the position groups I think I've had circled. I know Gerard has had circles like you need to go out and get a guy. But are they going to go out and get a guy?
Do you think they need to? I don't know if they need to.
Yeah, I'm kind of like pulling back on that a little bit. I don't know if they need to right now. I wouldn't be shocked if they went out and got like another guy to compete in that room. But DeCarlos Nicholson sounds like he's taken a step forward. You know, this is only his 3rd year playing cornerback after moving from quarterback at the JUCO level. So he's still a raw guy. Getting him back for another year is good, knows the defense. Sounds like he has been impressing this spring. But Braylon Conley, as you mentioned, is someone I heard had a really good performance on Saturday. And to quote, someone told me we need to be talking about him more. So we're talking about him more
Here we go.
as a guy who contribute big corner out of Texas. And then Marcellus Williams, who we've all, circled as the guy who's going to break out this season. That's a solid top 4. I know it's an experience with Marcellus and Braylon Conley, but get those guys some reps early in those 2 games going early, or in the first Missouri State and the Clay Helton Bowl against Georgia Southern, and then send them out on the road. You got an easy kind of big schedule you can ease into. Get those guys as much reps as you can to get them confidence moving forward. And I think that's a solid 4 right there. And then you got 2 freshmen down there, but Braylon Conley, Marcellus Williams, those guys have to take a step forward for me to feel okay about this cornerback room. But I'm interested to see what they're going to do, if they're going to actually grab a guy. And if they try to grab a guy at offensive line. We saw there were a couple tackles they were looking at from smaller schools to bring in for a visit. They ended up committing elsewhere. So I wonder if they're going to circle the wagons again and try to get a tackle out of the portal. You never know. They brought in Erwin Taomi super, super late in 2024. So maybe they'll do something like that again. But yeah, I think they need more guard help. That's just me. If you're going to roll with Tobias Raymond and Justin Tawanu at right tackle, so be it. But they have 0 experience at the guard spots. 3 career appearances, and you got a preferred walk-on also competing there. So I think they're super thin there, and they're injury away from being in big trouble.
I think it's a good point when you talk about the transfer portal, where USC was. I mean, USC now has the #1 ranked recruiting class for 2026. We heard from Chad Bowden, who was talking about minoring in the portal and majoring in high school recruiting. The portal just closed, I believe.
Friday, yes.
Friday, a couple days ago. Any thoughts on what USC did as far as departures or additions in the portal? And do you expect any, kind of major additions going forward? The portal's closed, but anyone in the portal could still transfer into any program they want.
I don't know about major additions, but I think they'll still look around and they could definitely add someone. I really like the strategy, which is bring in players who can have an impact now, but can also have an impact in the future. Every guy who's been brought in so far has 3 years of eligibility left. Tamir Robinson, the linebacker from Penn State, Kennedy Urlacher, the safety from Notre Dame, and Zacharias Williams, the wide receiver from Utah. Kyle Whittingham, Utah's head coach, said Williams was Utah's wide receiver 1 at their spring game, and then he hopped in the portal and came to USC. So he doesn't have a ton of production his freshman year. I think he caught 10 balls for like 100-something yards, played a lot on special teams. So it's going to be a jump for him, but he was clearly trending in the right direction at Utah. Tamir Robinson was having an awesome camp at Penn State, according to James Franklin and some of the reporters who I've talked to who cover Penn State, and he hops in the portal, so that's another move that I like a lot. And then the Urlacher one, a little bit of a head-scratcher to me. I didn't feel like they needed a safety. If he can play nickel, then so be it. I'll take that back. But if he's a true safety, I don't understand why he would come, because he's going to be clearly behind 3 guys. So hopefully he can play nickel. I think he is a versatile guy, so maybe I'm saying that he's only going to be at one spot. But that one didn't make as much sense to me as the others.
I was pounding the table for more safety help because you got 2 top guys, Kamar Ramsey. You got a guy who you don't really know, Christian Pierce. You hope he contributes next season, takes that step.
I think he will.
And then you got a bunch of freshmen, like just a bunch of freshmen back there, redshirt and true freshmen. And we know Danton Lynn is not going to throw anyone out there that he does not trust. So what happens if there's injuries? I think Kennedy really rounds out. Now you have a really top 4. I know he still has to learn the defense, but great bloodlines coming from Brian Urlacher's, his dad. Yeah. He can learn a defense. So I think he's going to be caught up there. You know, played a little bit at Notre Dame, played with a program that went to the college football championship. So he's got that in him as well. Yeah, I think he's going to be part of that top 4. He's going to be part of that rotation. And I think he could be a real contributor on defense this year. And then you got 4 guys you feel okay with. I know, like I said, still needs to learn the defense, but I don't think you want to be relying purely on some of these young guys that you had coming in, the true freshmen. And then you have Marquise Gallegos, who can, hope he can give you something, maybe special teams or defense. But I think you got a top 4 there. And you're right. I think he has some potential as a nickel as well. Plays really good at the line of scrimmage. Excellent tackler. Gerard broke down Kennedy in our last podcast. You can go listen to them. He really loves this pickup too. So yeah, I just think you needed another safety to round out that depth. Now I think you have it. Plus Kendarius Reddick coming in next in the summer. So I think you're good at safety.
All right. So we got the portal down. We got USC spring football down. The NFL draft happened over the last few days. Connor had brought this up before, and I think we put something in the war room about it. USC for 23 straight years, it was a record to have at least one player drafted in the first 3 rounds. This year, it was in question a little bit, but Jalen Smith ended up going
97th overall.
97th, the 3rd round.
Didn't think it was going to happen. There was a moment where it felt
Houston
like it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, the Texans took a couple Trojans, but USC ended up having 3 guys drafted and some other guys signing as unrestricted, free agents, undrafted free agents. But so sneaks someone in the 3rd round, Jalen Smith, great kid. It was great to follow him and his career. But just want to get your thoughts overall, USC and the NFL draft.
Happy for all the guys drafted. I was bummed that Jonah Monheim didn't go until the 7th. I felt like he deserved to go a little higher, but, I'm not a scout. With the Texans, they clearly love USC players, taking Kalen Bullock, and that worked out so well. So then they turned back around this year, took Jalen Smith in the 3rd round, and he was a prospect. If you looked on the early draft websites where people were going, the projections, like some people had him in the 3rd round, other people had him in the 5th or 6th. He was very up and down in some of those projections. So very happy to see him go at the higher end of that, and then Woody Marks joining him there too is really cool. Overall, a little bit of a down year, but that just goes to show how bad Clay Helton recruited at the end, and then some of the transfer portal misses that USC had over the past couple years come back to bite him a little bit, but I know people don't want to focus on that, so onward and upward.
It would have been better if, not better for the team, but the draft performance would have looked better if Kamari Ramsey had declared instead of coming back. Yeah, Emmanuel Pregnon, if he had declared instead of doing this weird comeback, psych out, no, I'm going to Oregon kind of deal, would have looked better for USC. But to echo Connor's sentiments, yeah, really happy for those 3 guys that ended up getting drafted. 3 of the more well-liked Trojans I've covered. I know Woody was only here for 1 year, but he was a fan favorite as well. And Jonah and Jalen, both guys I covered out of high school. And just with Jalen, super happy for him. Just that video of him at his draft thing was so cool.
Yeah.
And Jalen Smith, one of the more like positive, friendly, so humble, always so willing to talk to the media after tough losses, or he's always the same whenever you talk to him, and always gracious with his time. And I genuinely like felt like he liked talking to us. Some players do not like that, and some players avoid media. I'm not saying names, but I covered a bunch over the years that have done that. But Jalen Smith, always so gracious with his time. Jonah as well. But Jalen just seemed to like generally like talking to people, and I'm really happy that he got drafted. And to be the one to keep the streak going for USC, that's awesome. And just a guy who's overcome a lot, and to see him be able to hear his name called is awesome. And that's we've covered these guys for a long time. And Connor, before he was doing this job, covered the high school ranks too, so he's seen guys get called too. So it's always really cool to see those guys accomplish their dream of getting drafted in the NFL.
Over the last couple of years, we've done numerous tunnel vision shows, one-on-one or two-on-one interviews with USC football players. And most of the time, we've just done a Zoom sort of video kind of call with them, and it's been great. So many notable names that we've had on the show, and they've been awesome. Jalen Smith was the one. I actually went to campus, and we met over at the University Village, and I filmed it in person, sitting with him. I think it was back in like the fall of 2023. And just like you guys mentioned, just a great kid. And he seemed so happy when he got drafted. I think he's someone that can, potentially have an impact on some NFL roster. Gets reunited with Kalen Bullock, who he played with at USC. So very positive thing there. It was nice to see USC get into the third round, and he's a really nice kid. When you look at the draft overall, like Ohio State wins the national championship, and they win the draft.
You
they
can
had
see why.
14 guys drafted. Is there optimism that USC only had 3 guys drafted? Meaning, like, well, they didn't lose as many like impact players as a team like Georgia or Ohio State or Alabama.
I guess, but I mean, Chris laid them out. It wasn't like they had a million guys who could have gone. There was 2. So yeah, sure, but I mean, not overwhelmingly. Like it's all recruiting. Like Ohio State has recruited so well. Oregon, I think, had 10 guys drafted. They've recruited well. That was a program record for them. I saw on X. That's what it comes down to. So the fact that like we can spin this forward. You look at the 2026 class, what USC's doing right now. The hope is they can stack some classes, and then they'll be in the Ohio State spot. They'll be in the Oregon spot moving forward. What happened this draft? I mean, what was USC ranked that last Helton class? Like 70th in the country? Like just indefensibly bad. So you wonder why no one was getting drafted from USC. They had an awful recruiting class 3 years ago, and that's what did it.
And should be pointed out, Jalen Smith, Jonah Monheim, 2 of their 4-star signees that they had under Helton. So 2 of the more talented guys from a recruiting standpoint that Clay Helton signed, that Clay Helton staff signed, and they were able to get drafted. So again, all goes back to recruiting, bring more talent in. I do want to list off some of the undrafted free agents that got signed, just to give them a little love. Jamil Muhammad, the edge, signed with the Los Angeles Rams. Eddie Chaplitsky, who I thought was going to get drafted. I thought there was a chance, someone takes him
There
in the
was a
6th
putter
round.
drafted.
There was. I
It
thought
wasn't
there was
Eddie.
there was a place kicker drafted and a punter drafted.
Long
he
snapper
won-
was drafted
And
A long snapper was drafted
by the stupid Patriots.
Oh,
the
okay.
Patriots do that. Like,
Yeah, without Bill, you think they wouldn't, but still doing it.
I guess Eddie wasn't Australian enough, because that's the hot thing, to be an Australian punter
Yes.
and get drafted. He signed with the Kansas City Chiefs, who signed Christian Roland Wallace as an undrafted free agent last year, and he actually made the team. So Kansas City going back to the well there. The Raiders signed Greedy Vance and John Humphrey, I believe. I think Jacoby Covington signed with the Kansas City Chiefs as well. So two Trojans going to the Chiefs there. And then Mason Cobb got a Los Angeles Chargers tryout. So he didn't get signed as a undrafted free agent. Has a mini camp tryout. And then I haven't been able to find this anywhere else, but I did see a tweet that Easton Mascarenas Arnold signed as undrafted free agent with the Cleveland Browns. But again, I haven't been able to find that anywhere else besides this one reporter, the Oregon State reporter. So I'm going to do a little bit digging there. So not official there, but that is a name that has been tied to Easton Mascarenas. Have not seen anything else for like guys like Akili Arnold, Gavin Meyer?
I'm seeing something for Gavin here. According to Draft Diamonds, who has 100,000 followers, Meyer's been invited to the rookie minicamp of the Chiefs and the Dolphins, so maybe he's negotiating with those two teams. But that's kind of like your Mascarenas Arnold thing. I haven't seen that anywhere else, and he's the only guy who's tweeted that, Draft Diamonds. So maybe Meyer will land with the Chiefs or the Dolphins. I think he can make a roster. I think he can, but we'll see.
Remember, Christian Roland Wallace and Justin Dietich made their squads out of and played. Yeah, both
Dietich was starting for a while. Yeah, for the Rams.
Yeah, Roland Wallace got a ring too with the Super Bowl. No, he didn't. He got some sort of ring. They lost. I just forgot.
Okay,
I apologize.
That's okay.
Got close to a ring.
But
Yes,
I think the
almost.
point being that there's opportunity for these free agents signing with different teams, and you can catch on and do well. 3 guys drafted, not great, but I think you just have to kind of look at it as glass half full. Like, well, you didn't lose that many potential NFL guys off the roster. See, what you're able to build on this next following year. So interesting stuff. Why don't we do this? Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We have some questions in the chat, and if anything else you guys want to bring up, we will do that as well. So back in a minute, everyone. All righty, we're back here on Tunnel Vision. I am your host, Ryan Abraham, joined along by Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino. We haven't done one of these like traditional Tunnel Vision in a while. We are taking live calls if you want to call in. 512-4-TUNNEL. Hopefully that works well. You can call in and ask any questions. There have been a bunch of questions in the chat we can get to, but before we do, anything else you guys wanted to bring up?
Chris, anything from you?
Not really. I want some focus. I want to hear what the people want.
You
us
want
to
some
talk
okay.
about. Yeah.
So if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, you can put a question in the chat, the live chat, and we will get to them. And I'm going to pull some of these up. We got a whole bunch of them already. Bless and Breaks question. What are you guys' thoughts on the other sites' crystal ball predictions for offensive line Pepe coming to us?
Looks really good. I got a text from someone over the weekend. Pepe and then eyeballs. So I think USC's doing the best
He
they
has
can.
2 eyeballs?
No, like
Oh,
with
okay,
the emoji.
No, I know. I'm
Ah.
just messing with you.
Funny.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, Pepe was trending in that direction going into his last visit that he took, I think it was the week before, and then he just popped up. He was not on the list to arrive, and then
But he was there.
but he was there. So that's a great sign. IMG guy, but from Long Beach, from California. He's been away for a while, away from his family, so it makes sense on paper. Want to come home and play in front of his family and be local again. So yeah, it suits really well for Pepe. We've been hearing the same thing, that USC is really surging to end the blue chip offensive tackle drought that has been going on since Austin Jackson, I believe 2017, the last 5-star offensive tackle that they have signed. So yeah, it would be a massive win for USC and a big statement getting another 5-star in the fold like that. I'm just curious, Bless and Breaks, does that mean you're like a breaking channel with cards and stuff? I'm curious.
I'm not sure.
If he puts it in the chat, I want to know.
We want to hear about it. Oscar in the chat also. Question: who will be the next Trojan commit on the offensive and defensive side of the ball?
I'll defer to you, Chris.
Yeah, what do you got?
I think
Composite 2-star
obviously,
recruits.
like Pepe there's been some smoke about Pepe, so I won't rule him as a big one or like a that's the one for offense, but I think it could be coming close to that. I think Talanoa Ely on the defensive side of the ball, the big linebacker out of Orange Lutheran, now at Kahuku in Hawaii. Crystal balls have been on for quite some time. We kind of felt like maybe he was going to pop soon, so I would circle him as possibly the next defensive guy. And I just got everyone really excited, so I apologize.
Woo woo! No, don't be apologized for getting people excited. That's good. We love that. All right, let's go to Jeff. How close is Anthony Lucas to returning?
Sounds like he'll return for fall camp in the summer, but he didn't do anything this spring outside of rehabbing. So I don't exactly know what the next couple months will look like for him, but I think they expect him back for the summer, so that's good.
I could be wrong. I thought Lincoln Riley said he's a little bit ahead of his
Okay.
rehab, but it's going well. I could be just making that
So
up.
if he said that at the beginning, he said, "Oh, we could have him at the end of spring." So what? So which is it?
Yeah. We haven't seen him in a while, though.
Yeah, I haven't
He's
seen him.
In the early in spring, he would come out, but he had not been coming out like the final couple weeks of practice. So, but he looked like he was walking fine. So just a matter of rehabbing and progressing the knee. We don't know exactly what it was. Maybe it was like a meniscus or something. I don't think it was
Yeah,
like a
they
full
didn't say.
ACL or MCL, anything like that. So not something that was going to keep him out a full year. But yeah, last that we asked Riley about it, he is progressing well and should be back for fall camp.
I think one of the positives is he hasn't been around in the spring, and before when the defensive line, was thinner, you would notice if Bear Alexander was out for a while, and you could miss some key guys there. But there's enough bodies, there's enough athleticism, bigger guys that you can say, all right, well, you're missing a couple. There's enough guys kind of backfilling, and it still doesn't look like it's a bad defensive line room. So I think that's something different. You would miss an Anthony Lucas or like a Bear Alexander from last year. You're just like, oh, without them, they don't even look like the same team. Now that with the amount of bodies they have, I think they still do.
Totally agree with you. You'd think like it would stand out, but Cameron Fountain's huge. Jakeem Stewart is
Right.
huge.
A lot of big
Braylon
dudes.
Shelby's huge. He'll fit right in when he comes back.
Sweet. Let's go to another question. It's in YouTube chat. California. I think that's Southern California. Question. How many Trojans get drafted in next year's NFL draft? And Craig kind of followed along with that. How many USC draft picks in 2026? 3 ain't going to cut it.
All right, Connor, let's do this. Kamari, draft.
Eric Gentry.
Gentry, draft.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, maybe J.Henry Reed. That's kind of like a not like these two are like Gentry and Kamari like feel really good. I think Reed maybe with a good season. DeCarlos Nicholson's also DJ Harvey, possibly as a nickel guy at the NFL. That's 3 right there. Bishop Fitzgerald also kind of like in that J.Henry Reed category, like a fringe kind of guy with a good season could raise that stock. So looking at Harvey, looking at Gentry, looking at Kamari Ramsey. You know, one of the receivers could leave, Jacoby Lane or Mekhi Lemon. One of those guys would get drafted, or both of those guys, I think, if they left. I think if they both get drafted, they had really, really good seasons. They have draft potential because they're juniors. Elijah Page could also be, draft eligible. So that could be 3 more right there that would get drafted with really good seasons. Mekhi Lemon, 1,000 yards. I don't know what their thought process is, but I think one of those guys could leave. So that would give you kind of 4 out of those receivers, Lemon and Lane. Kind of thinking if there's anyone else.
Maeva has a good season. He could get drafted.
Yeah, Maeva is also draft eligible with a good season. He could also get drafted. Again, one of those fringe guys for me because you need a good season. But those 4 that we talked about, one of the receivers, Gentry, I think DJ Harvey is in a good spot to get drafted, and then Eric Gentry and Kamari Ramsey. So at least 4 right now.
Yeah, I think they'll have 4 or 5 next season. Yeah. That's probably where I'd settle on it.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Potentially more, but probably I would guess if over under, it's probably gonna be in the 4 or 5 range. Brian, anyone here? What role exactly will senior offensive analyst John McDowell? McDowell, sorry, McDonald. Oh, I'm sorry. McDowell, McDonald.
It's all Greek to me. He's going to be an offensive line coach, pretty much. He's working with them almost exclusively at practice. That's what he's done in his career. He did that at Notre Dame, I think at Penn State, too. He's been all over the place. He was brought in to be that older coach to help out a younger guy in Zach Hansen, who's still relatively new to coaching the offensive line. So I really liked the addition when they made it. I felt like they needed an older guy to come in and just give a different perspective, and it seems like that's what's happening right now. He's working really close with the guys, too. He's not afraid to get in there and, grab some pads and stuff. It's been fun watching him.
For the last question, Brian says Lake McCree. Could he have been drafted? Could he be drafted?
It would need to be a really
his
good
injury
season.
history. I'm sorry, I don't think so.
What about Silver and Lucas? That's from Neil. And
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Lucas. Sorry, Lucas. Healthy. You know, he was already getting like some draft buds last year before the injury. So if he stays healthy, get some sacks on the board, yeah, he could absolutely. He's an NFL guy. So I think, yeah, staying healthy is the primary thing. Then getting in the backfield, making some plays. But he showed to be a really good, solid. You know, setting the edge in the run game. There's some clips out there from the LSU game being really physical. So he's on the radar for some teams already. So yeah, I apologize, Anthony Lucas. Definitely a draftable guy there. So that would bring us to like 5.
And both of those guys were former 5-stars, so
That helps.
You can never rule out those guys getting picked.
Potential.
I do
Yeah.
think Lucas has a clearer path than Silver, but we'll see. A good year from Silver, he could definitely get drafted too.
Devin Tompkins as well. He's just gotten better and better every year. So if he has, another progressive season, like 6.5 tackles for a loss, something like that, he's up there. He's draft eligible, so he could also be a guy who looks like an NFL dude. So that's another one.
Let's go to Trojan Fight. He has a question. With the Pepe situation committing soon, would you say USC is paying what the rate is for a 5-star offensive tackle? The knock on USC recruiting is they weren't being considered by the top OTs.
Yes, they're paying. They're being aggressive with NIL money. They are definitely playing the game now, which is something that we've all been saying they should do. So
They're
very
at
encouraging.
the table.
Yeah.
They're at the
But
table.
not even that being at the table. They were at the table before and they were getting laughed out of the room sometimes. Like they're at the table now and they're actually making deals, shaking hands, signing stuff.
Yeah, I think if you listen to the composite 2-star recruits, you'd hear the same thing. If you listen to Connor and I, we sort of talked about resources weren't the problem last year. They had resources. It was how you utilize those resources. It wasn't great. Well, they completely revamped the personnel department. You have 3 former GMs on staff right now in your personnel department where you had none before. And Chad Bowden's come in, who built the roster that took Notre Dame to the national championship game and changed the philosophy, changed how you think about recruiting, and it's made a massive difference in my opinion. So they had resources before, wasn't utilized well. Now you have the personnel to deploy those resources in much more strategic ways, and I think that's made a major difference.
And if you see Jakeem Stewart post about buying his family a car, they're getting paid. They're making it happen.
Yeah, there's resources around. Do you disagree, Chris? Or are you good?
You guys handled it.
All right. We're not recruiting experts, but we'll.
Sorry I jumped down your throat there, Chris.
No, he's all good. Max,
Anytime.
Thoughts on the new Utah wide receiver edition?
Talked about him a little earlier, how he was trending really well to be Utah's top guy.
He was like Utah's #1 receiver in the spring, right? Like
Yeah.
that was like so. I mean,
Not
is Utah known for like great receivers? No, but still, you get the best receiver on the Utah squad. That's not bad.
Well, remember, USC was in on Williams late out of high school, and then he ultimately stayed with Utah. This was after he had committed to Utah. The family
Yeah.
felt like Utah had been with them from the beginning. Clearly, as time has gone on, USC became a more attractive option. He proved himself. That relationship didn't go away. I also know that Chad Savage played a big role in this recruitment, and nothing against Dennis Simmons, but this was a big-time Savage connection, too, because he was recruiting him at Colorado State before. So what are my thoughts? I think he could be a pretty solid depth piece at receiver for USC this season. If he can get to 500 yards, I think that would be a good year for him. And then next year, or 2 years from now, he'd have the chance to be a more established guy going forward. But that room needs other bodies outside of Lemon and Lane, and there's no reason why he can't come in and contribute.
Yeah, doesn't bring a ton of production, but he's young. I like the size, 6'2", gives another like bigger bodied receiver. You got 2 smaller guys coming in the summer. Now you got another, size guy, Corey Sims, 6'3", Prince Strawn, and then Jacoby Lane. So just another guy can kind of maybe fill that bigger receiver deficit that they have with Kyle Ford being gone, Kyron Hudson being gone. That's the kind of the mold I see him in. Really good hands, fight for the ball, strong, Watched him a couple times at Sarah. You know, he could be productive. Not a speedster by any means, but he'll get open and make catches. So I think that is what this offense needs. And hey, I wouldn't count him out as being a guy who emerges down the stretches. Maybe he's the third option.
He could also be a return man, which is another appealing thing.
Yeah.
Chris and I have talked a lot about, outside of Mekhi Lemon, what does USC have in the return game? Not much. And Williams doesn't have much experience returning kicks and punts. He did it in high school, so I don't know if they would just throw him into the fire, but he's a guy. Yeah, he's a guy who I think when we watch practice in the summer, he'll be returning punts and kicks, and if he impresses, he could certainly lock down one of those roles. We were talking Lemon. We feel like will be either the punt or the kick guy, probably the kick guy, and then that'll open up a punt return spot. So maybe that could be his duty going forward. We'll see.
We will see. Let's go. We got another question from Oscar. What's a realistic win total for this year? 9, 10, or 11 wins, be honest? Seems a little, he's on the optimistic side. I would be in the more, you were 6-6 last year. I think 9's pretty reasonable, but I would go in the 8-9 range. I think Vegas has USC as like 7.5 or something, but I would go in the 8-9 range. Where do you guys think?
I don't know if I'm ready to make my prediction yet, but
Okay.
7-9 would be my guess, somewhere in there.
7-9. Okay, so you're not scratching the 10-11 that Oscar. Puts
No,
in the
like
chat.
I mean, they didn't win a road game last year. Like, come on.
They beat UCLA.
Come on.
Doesn't
Yeah,
really
I'm kind of
count.
in the 8-9 range as well.
Yeah,
Better defense. Squeeze
Easier
out a couple more.
schedule.
Yeah.
Better pizza, Papa John's.
I know Connor was so overly optimistic last year,
I wish I stuck to my guns after the LSU game.
predicting
I kind of walked it
7-5.
back after LSU. I wish I.
You were
stuck
caught
to
up
my
with the
guns.
frozen daiquiri, the big
Yeah.
win. It's
All right.
okay.
So
'Cause LSU
speaking of
sucked.
this, Jeff says 8 is a disaster. Is 8 a disaster after you won 6 the year before?
I wouldn't say disaster, but you need to do better in 8.
I don't think it's a disaster.
Jeff says 9 game floor or it's bad. Max says 7.5. I'm slamming the over. And here's a good one for you, Chris. Super OC Holmes.
Oh no.
Can we keep recruits with 9 wins?
I think you can keep recruits 9 wins.
I think this is
I think you
this
can
is a
keep
class
recruits
that you're
with
going to
8.
keep no matter like how you do.
Unless the bottom falls out, which no one thinks is going to happen.
Yeah.
We're talking 9 regular season wins with a chance for 10 in the
Yeah,
bowl.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
8, I think, is enough. They're paying a lot of money. Like, that's what it is. And
No.
the coaches, if Danton Lynn leaves, maybe that would have an impact, of course. But, like, I think 8's fine to keep recruits.
So Tunnel Vision crew, if Danton Lynn does leave, you can blame Connor because he just predicted it. So that's just Put it up.
I did not make a prediction. I said
I just yeah.
Anything under 8 is a disaster.
Yeah.
8 is okay. 9 is what, like, as someone said, that should be like, 9 should be the not the goal, but it should be like
Yeah.
the reasonable like win total with a chance to get 10 in the bowl.
This league is hard. It's hard
I know.
to win 9 games.
Speaking
I
of,
know.
Sid Irish says, does USC play Oregon? Yes,
Yeah,
on the road.
Yeah, and Notre Dame,
Notre Dame on the road.
Yeah,
Nebraska
Notre Dame
on
and
the
Oregon
road,
on the road.
Illinois on the road. Those are tough games.
There's some tough games in the Big Ten, and they weren't able to win against some bad teams. No offense, Chris, but Maryland being one of them.
Maryland
And-
had more players drafted, double what USC had drafted.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's even.
that's how they won. 'Cause they had
I
3 more
remember
draft
last
picks.
season
how
having
many Big
this,
Ten wins did Maryland have?
1.
Yeah, beat USC.
I remember last season they were talking about the record prediction, and everyone would be like, well, "Where are their losses? Where are their losses? Where are their losses? How do you see them have that many losses?" And then look what happens. So,
Yeah, you were right, and then you backed off your prediction.
a little
so-
bit.
So
I
you
backed
weren't
off
really
it.
right, I guess, but-
So frustrating. I should have doubled down.
Yeah, if you don't remember, so Connor predicted USC going 7-5, and a lot of the USC fans on the Peristyle and here were upset at his negativity. Then USC goes to Vegas and beats LSU, and they, in P fashion, just piled on Connor how he was such an idiot and so negative. And it turns
Well,
out
both teams sucked.
he
How do you
was
like that?
overly optimistic. He predicted 7 wins in the regular season. USC only had 6. So Yeah, so that's the story.
But
which
this
was
year
good.
should be better.
Yeah. Super OC Holmes, does Coach Lynn have the players he wants to run his defense, or do we need the incoming class to grow for a year?
I think he's got the guys.
On the D-line, yeah, for sure.
I think all over.
It looks very
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they should keep getting better with what they're doing recruiting. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then I think we got one last one, unless we get some more. Craig in the chat says, what is Jade Mayava's ceiling for the season? I believe this team will go as far as he can take them. I don't think that's a terrible take. I think that USC's regressed on offense last year. And if he can step things up and not have this big of a, the roller coaster ride that was Mayava, 3 and a quarter bad quarters in the bowl game until playing well at the end. I think he's a player that if he starts the whole season, that he's someone that USC can ride. He's going to need to play well for this team to perform well.
I look at the turnovers with him. 1 or 0 turnovers should be enough for USC to have a really good season. Where you run into trouble is the multiple ones. So that to me will determine his ceiling, because we saw in the Texas A&M game he can have a hell of a game, but make some boneheaded plays.
Yeah.
If Texas A&M was full force, that game would have been totally different. Like, you can't make those mistakes against elite competition. You're not going to win a game with 3 turnovers against a good team, like 99% of the time.
Two pick sixes for 100 yards.
Yeah, so
You're not happy with that.
just look at the turnovers with him. Like, if his great plays aren't as great, but he doesn't turn the ball over as much, I think then that leads to him being a better quarterback. So his ceiling, it's great. Like, he could be a consistent 300 yards per game guy. Like, we've seen him have some huge games, but the turnovers have been killer. So if you can find that middle ground, then I think that leads to the team being a lot better.
By hell of a game, did you mean like he was in hell? Was it tough for 3 quarters?
He is a high ceiling guy, though. But the problem is there's a low floor, high ceiling, which means it's sort of like my golf game. Like, you could crush it down the middle, and then you could hit it sideways into the woods. And there was a lot of Jade Mayava just shanking the ball into the woods.
I mean, he threw for 295 yards against A&M, 360 against Notre Dame. Like, he has that gunslinger in him, but 3 picks against A&M, 2 against Notre Dame, like 3. Or excuse me, I'm reading the wrong thing. 3 against A&M, 2 against Notre Dame. Is that what I said? The picks have to be better.
His ceiling is someone who gets drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the floor is low too. So you would like to raise the floor. Raising the ceiling is always great, but you would like to raise the floor and at least keep the variance so it's not too roller coastery down. And that's Lincoln Riley's coached. I mean, he's the only head coach in the history of college football with 3 number 1 overall draft picks. He's obviously done a good job with quarterbacks in the past, and you have to have some faith that he's going to be able to take USC's quarterback room and make them into winners. There was a huge step back last year. It was just not the kind of offense that Lincoln Riley has run at any time in his career as an offensive coordinator or a head coach. So that was a big deal. You got to change that. And I think if your quarterback can have a higher ceiling and you raise the floor, that's going to be a big part of it. One last question. Max says, is this the best roster in a while? What roster would you compare it to? It feels like we have a good enough roster to compete for playoff contention.
You can make the case outside of the quarterback, it's the best roster that they've had. But, of course, when you have Caleb Williams, that changes things. So, like, depth-wise, I don't know. What do you think? That first
Depth-wise, they're
year-
still shaky to me in spots.
Oh, of course. But, like, comparing it to every other team, they were
Are you talking about Lincoln Riley's team?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
the first year, Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, a good offensive line, and then the defense was bad, but Solo, like, that offense was better. So, like, it's the best defense they've ever
Sure,
had,
yes,
for sure.
absolutely.
But I would say not the best offense.
All right. Well, I think that's it. That's all the questions we got.
sorry, I was trying to do the math in my head.
Did we
I-
give,
I
did we
like-
give
I
Max
don't-
a
I
good
feel like
enough
I
Chris
don't
was
know
going
if
to
we
say
gave-
something, and then it just
I think it's
some
yes,
shut
just
off.
gun to my head. I'd have to look a little more, but I think if you calculate it up, I think it would be, yes, the best, not at quarterback withstanding, but yeah.
I don't know. I think the first year had more stars.
Yeah, absolutely. You had a first
And
round.
imagine if Danton Lynn coached that first year defense, like then they might actually make the playoffs.
No, yeah, I think you're definitely in the playoffs if Denton Lynch is your DC.
Yeah, the schedule was easier, different league, of course, so you got to factor that in. But like that first year, that offense was really good.
Yeah,
Heisman Caleb and Danton Lynn defense. Don't make them cry.
Heisman Caleb, good offensive line. Jordan Addison, good running game.
Don't make them cry.
yeah. Lincoln Riley kind of. I think he talked about this in the Josh Pate interview,
Yeah.
where it's sort of like a lot of mercenaries sort of came in for the. That's. But it worked.
But what choice did they have?
No,
Literally had to do it.
it was good, and even now that you have a new personnel staff and your 2026 class is going to be elite, it looks like it could have been a mercenary year this year to just bring in a bunch of dudes from the portal, knowing that, hey, we're bringing a recruiting class next year, but for this year we need to compete. Let's bring in more transfers than we normally would.
They could have, but different strategy.
Yeah,
and
the personnel staff wasn't in place when the winter portal was open.
Yeah, I like what they've done in the spring for the most part.
To steal or be the Ryan analogy guy, they're not using the microwave. They're using the oven. It's going to take a little more time.
That's true.
Take a
I
little more
like it.
time.
I like it.
No air fryer.
All right, that's not. It screws up my whole analogy, Ryan. It's kind of in the middle. I don't know. I don't know how to fit it into my analogy.
Okay.
End the show. Just cut it off.
All right, we're gonna cut off the show. Chris, thank you so much. Let me give you some round of applause for coming in. It's good.
This is
Hold on.
giving flashbacks to when we did the show. Are you gonna do the?
I'm a little disappointed. There's no treat.
Yeah,
Did you get a treat?
Yeah.
We
I
had
got
dinner.
a treat.
We got dinner.
I got dinner here waiting for me. That's my treat.
That
so.
is pretty good. Good stuff. And Connor, it's always good to see you.
Great to see you.
We haven't had Chris in the show, and we are going to get Riley. Riley, you want to pop in again? Riley Sager, excellent intern. Yes, high standards after Keeley and after Jack, but I think Riley's going to fall right in. She's a sophomore. We're gonna get like 3 years of her, so it's. What's
Yeah.
oh that's a good question. What's Riley's ceiling? She's asking.
Hi, I think.
Yeah.
High,
I think it's high ceiling.
draftable.
She comes from like a family of sports people. Like,
Yeah.
she knows her thing. If you guys want to listen, she's got her own podcast. What's the name of the podcast, Riley? Mental Playbook. Go check it out. She interviews USC players and coaches and stuff. Does a great job with it. As a true sophomore at USC.
I thought she was a redshirt sophomore.
Redshirt sophomore?
Just kidding.
No.
Not a holdback.
Yeah.
True sophomore.
But go check it out. Like I like a lot of the stuff. And shout out to Jeff Fellinger. Met a lot of, interns and potential interns from his class. He usually has me come in once a year or once a semester and speak. And that's where I met Riley. But some really great USC students have kind of come through there. I love when people are self-starters and they just kind of do their own thing. And Riley was someone doing that. Before I even mentioned it, I'd already started her own podcast and all that. So good stuff. We slowly brought her along in spring football. By the end, doing like 18 minutes of instant analysis, which is great. Chris, do you remember your first instant analysis? You just did not want to do it.
You mean like in person? I remember my first Zoom one. That was terrifying.
Oh, was that like pandemic-y?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
pandemic-y. That's a
This
good word.
pandemic-y time. Chris has come a long way, but we're really happy with Riley and looking forward to having her helping out on this show, probably sitting in this chair and going forward with more instant analysis and all that kind of stuff. So any other final thoughts, guys?
Someone in the chat said Riley might enter the transfer portal.
Her brother's at Georgia, right? Her brother's at Georgia. We could see that. Remember Nicole, who's covering Ohio State now. She did some stuff with us, and she was at Georgia undergrad. She came here to do
Transfer.
her master's. You're not transferring, are you, Riley?
I can't say.
Oh,
Kidding, no.
she's here. She loves LA, but she's going back to Atlanta here pretty soon. But we're really happy to have her on board, and happy to have all of you joining us on the chat. We haven't done any kind of regular televisions as far outside of the House of Victory interviews, which we will have another one coming up on Monday. our plan is to continue doing those House of Victory interviews with players throughout the offseason and the occasional like Sunday night kind of tunnel vision stuff. Shotgun will be here next weekend. He always likes doing tunnel vision, so we'll probably do one then. But for Chris Trevino and Connor Morrissette, I am your host, Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.